Wow, don't even know if you can see that, because I certainly can't in the viewfinder. Right at the top of the house there, it's all black wall where the rain's been lashing it and pouring down the chimney. Hello, thanks for watching. Cool, do I sound tired? Oh, well, just shows how things can change in almost an instant. I went out shopping last night, about 5 in the evening, and thoughts of Mercury retrograde coming in today. And I thought, oh yeah, it's probably going to be alright, everything's looking pretty good. I can't blame it on Mercury retrograde, can't really blame it on anything, it's the stormy weather. It just happens, doesn't it? But got back from the shops, you know, everything's coolio. And went up to my bedroom because it was getting late. And sat there watching a repeat of Family Guy on YouTube. And kept thinking I could hear a drip, and I looked around everywhere and I couldn't see anything dripping. Put the light on, no sign of any dripping. Family Guy. And I could still hear this drip, and then I could feel a little splash of water against my face, just very faintly, every time the drip came. So I got up and had a proper look, really careful. I had to put my head torch on to find it, and it's just this tiny drop of water coming down from the ceiling. So, oh dear, what's this? And by this time I'm wearing my dressing gown, so I went up into the attic trying not to trip over it, because there's no floor in the attic. It's just like the beams to walk across. And nothing wrong with the roof at all. Strange, you know? So I set up a bucket underneath where the drip was coming, which happened to be right on the edge of my bed, so my bed was wet. Thank God I've brought up 2 daughters and I still got their beds. I went and slept in one of them. So I'm drying all my blankets and stuff out now. And anyway, this morning I woke up and wonderful, everything bone dry. Couldn't see any wetness anywhere. The bucket had hardly anything in it. Must have stopped dripping just after I went to sleep. And I stayed up till about 3:30 AM just in case the house was going to fall down. I'm sure I'd have realised... I'm sure I'd have been awoken if it had fallen down, but I kind of wanted to be there to see it if it happened, you know. So, woke up this morning, like all the good songs go, everything nice and dry. So I started getting on with the day. And I went out to feed the chickens, and I was looking all around the outside of my house, still trying to figure out, you know, where could this water be coming from? I mean, obviously it's falling out of the sky and it's something to do with all the rain we're having, but I didn't know. And when I got round the back of the house, I noticed that about the top half of the end wall of my house, pretty well all the way down to the halfway mark, was absolutely black. And it's, you know, it's made of stone, so it shouldn't have been black. And I realised there's just so much water hitting the outside of my wall that it's got through to the inside. And my walls are 2 feet thick. 2 feet thick. So anyway, having a bite of lunch after I did the astrology. Check it out, by the way. Today's astrology and a video for today on the whole of next week, incorporating Mercury retrograde, is there on my channel, waiting to be viewed. And eating lunch, heard another drip and thought, oh no, because it's not even raining at this point. So this is something. So check the attic again. Yep, you know, everything up there's all right. The end wall of the attic looked a bit wet, but that's sort of bound to be happening. You know, there was no burst pipes or leakages or anything like that to think about. We don't often go this way, do we? Let's go this way for a change. I'll tell you why I'm going this way in a second. In fact, I'm nearly there. Yeah, I decided, well, the whole 2-foot thickness of the wall, halfway down, is obviously soaked through. Now, I've got an antique stove in my kitchen, which I've been told not to use anymore. It's serviceable and it's safe, but it's very bad for the environment because 70% of the heat goes straight up the chimney. It's not very environmentally safe. So I haven't used it for quite a long time. And I just realised, you know, the whole point of that, probably the reason they put that stove there in the first place, was because when the walls are 2 feet thick, you need 70% of the heat going into them to keep them dry. So I broke all the rules this morning and lit a fire in there. And I reckon if I just keep that fire blazing and all the other fires in the house, there's another 3, keep them all blazing, and keep the electric heating on when I'm awake. I turn it off at night in case it starts a fire or something. Just keep as much dry heat going as I can. I might get away with it. The wall should dry out anyway. So now this is wobbling, let's just sort this out. So there we are, everything's changing. But when I started thinking about tiny houses, something people lived in, as recently as medieval times, a great many people lived in tiny homes. When I was on the road in the 1980s going around the rock festivals, excuse me a tick, can't get a decent angle on the camera, let me just try again. I'll keep my eye on the road as well, you see. Yeah, in the 80s, I was on the road, going to various rock festivals, most of which had been pronounced illegal, but again, that was something that had gone on from time immemorial. They didn't used to be rock festivals, but, you know, fairs, gatherings, that kind of thing. It was that, you know, and the government of the day had tried to ban it, and everyone was still going to them. And in those days, that's when I learned about benders, which is kind of dwelling. I'm sure it's known all over the world actually, but benders is what we call them in Britain. And they got that name because you would gather up willow poles, wooden poles generally, but willow if you could get it, smooth them off as much as possible, and you would bend them. So you'd have some up this way and some up this way, and you would bend them together, tie them around at the top, and then put canvas over it. Or I guess I would have had oilcloth. You know, we think kind of modern tarpaulins are a totally new thing, and they tend to work a lot better than oilcloth. They don't last as long, but they do work. Got to admit that one. And so you'd have these oilcloth dwellings, and it was quite normal for people to live in them, even people who had houses, when they had to go out and chop a lot of wood, or maybe spend a fortnight at the beach boiling seawater to get a supply of salt. They didn't live anywhere with a salt mine. It was kind of a normal thing to move into these tiny little bender things in times of extreme either hardship or just, you know, having to do extreme things to get by, travelling. And I must admit, it kind of doesn't seem like the end of the world, but it seems pretty close to the end of the world scenario to me. If my house keeps on getting more and more squishy and eventually falls down, because I've lived in it 30 years now. But I got to thinking about it. God, it just would not be difficult to make a tiny house for myself if I had to. I could even still have broadband, thinking about it. All I'd need is a long Ethernet cable, and I could still have my phone line connected to the ruin of my house. With an Ethernet cable coming out so I can talk to you guys. So it's not all craziness, just feels like it. So, oh gosh. There you go, see? Try and make a video and you stall your car, but it doesn't matter. So right now I'm on my way to a petrol station on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere that's open on Sundays. They still have Sunday closing around here for a lot of things. Strangely though, right, I was the church organist until a few years ago, and there weren't many people going to church, despite the fact that they're all kind of very pro closing everything on Sunday. Strange, eh? Strange thing faith is. So I'm going to this petrol station now because it sells quite cheap coal. I'm just going to get as much coal as I can cram in the back of the car. Because the thing to do is obviously just keep on blasting that antique stove and keeping an eye on it because it's very old. And actually one of my fires isn't very old as well. It was put in 1921, so it's 99 years that it's been going now. Still in quite good condition though. Maybe someone fixed it up back in the 50s or something, I don't know. But this is the thing about the old ways, you know. If your house is set up to work the old ways, it's pretty much got to keep working the old ways. And my plan B, in fact my plan pretty much B to Z, if plan A fails, is a combination of the old ways and a very new way. A very new way, which in fact is just about the oldest way there is. And that is to knock up a tiny house in the garden. Thankfully I'm blessed with enough of a garden to be able to do that. Good gosh, just looked at the river, it's absolutely rampantly high. Oh, spraying water everywhere. But it hasn't rained today, we are certainly blessed in that respect. The sun is really shining, so I hope that's drying things out as well. Crazy. Now then, it would be very easy to put this all down to Mercury retrograde. I can't really. Just no way of blaming Mercury retrograde for this. Because it's supposed to be to do with travel, transport, communication, education, legal matters, that kind of thing. But mostly travel, transport and communication. And I can't help noticing the car's working and I'm shooting a video at the same time. So I'm not seeing a problem with communication. I think there's definitely a problem with education at the moment though. And it's a problem that's stretched into the present time from decades ago. And that is just trying to teach people that there's only one way to live and only one way to have your home and your house. It's all got to be newly built. Somehow that's better than keeping a house that's already paid its environmental debt off and been there for hundreds of years. So you rip that down, you build a brand new one out of cardboardy stuff, sheetrock, that kind of thing. And sure, if I had that, I wouldn't have the 2-foot wall problem, you know, the 2-foot thickness of the wall causing me a problem now. But I probably wouldn't have any walls at all, because the storm force winds we've been having have been insane. We had Hurricane Kira, and now we're having Hurricane Dennis, I think that's his name. And I wonder what's next, really. Because I look at the long-range weather forecast, it's all kind of wind and rain and snow going on for a couple of weeks now, and it's nearly March. And yet so many people believe that the only way to live is this new modern way, where you just kind of pour tons and tons of chemicals into various modern processes to make new materials, eco-friendly materials, which are just about killed half the known universe along the way to getting them and making them real. And the tiny house thing is great, really. I think I'm really quite positive about that. And some commentators say, well, you know, tiny houses are a really bad idea because it's just the elite telling the rest of us that we've got to live in these little boxes. Well, I mean, the elite can afford to live where they like, that's a fact of it. I can't afford to live as well as what you might call elite, high money earning people anyway. And this promises to be fun. Okay, let's pull over here and get some coal. There we go. Seatbelt on. And we're off. Oh, drains overflowing and everything. Look at that little river running down the side of the road. This one's a bit drier. I really hope this lovely sunshine is some kind of evidence that that's the end of the storm. I doubt it. It's probably either the eye of Storm Denzel or the gap of Dennis or whoever he is, or the gap between him and the next one. You just never know. But look at these rolling hills with the sun baking them. Fantastic, really. And human beings have been able to live here so much longer than any of these modern ways have been around. Right back to prehistoric times, people have been farming up here and managing to do it without a car. If I didn't have the car, I'd have had to go out and cut trees down without a chainsaw in those days as well. Just have to saw them down by hand. On the other side of that, of course, my family would have all been there in the house and not kind of left home trying to find a job somewhere else. So, you know, it kind of wouldn't have been all bad. There'd have been a different balance of things, but what really strikes me is that balance of things worked for so long till we got to these so-called enlightened times. I saw a YouTube video a couple of days ago about a man who was born in 1933, and his diet was just 3 different kinds of corn. I think he was born in Virginia, USA. 3 different kinds of corn at 3 different times of year, just depending what they had. Townsends, that's it. It's a great channel, Townsends. They do kind of cooking from kind of like the 18th century, you know, kind of. Even the 17th century, the guy was talking about the 1640s the other day when the first Swedish settlers came to the New World. And that was it. Someone had left a comment on one of his videos saying that this guy had only really eaten corn right through to modern times. Amazing. And you sort of wonder how that can be. How can things have changed so much? I don't think I'd like to just have to live on corn all the time, but people never used to worry about this thing of having variety, you know. As long as you had something that would feed you and that would do the business, things were fine. Wow. Just looking across there, and the river is so high. Just go down on the bridge and see if I can get a quick shot of it. Let's just pull in here. See what we can see. Got to be really careful not to drop my camera in the river now. Absolutely amazing. I guess you guys don't really know because you've never seen this bit of river when it isn't flooded. Can you see the trees there, you know? There's a proper little island down there. And so the river itself is much narrower than this most of the time. It's right over there. The force of that. Of course, it's happening everywhere in the world now, isn't it? Everything is that bit much more extreme than it used to be. Not just the weather either. People's attitudes, homelessness, all those things. Everything seems to be going crazy. I think everything is going crazy. But that aptitude for craziness has always been part of the world, you know. And we think about God, we think about the divine, and the fact that the world must have been made to be this way. And actually, whether you see that as something to do with God or not, the fact is, this is how the world was made, whether it was intelligent design, whether it was the Big Bang, whatever it was. This is what we've got to live with. This is what we've got to deal with. It's beautiful up here though, look, this is right up the top of the mountain now. When I first moved to this area about 30 years ago, there were still people around who'd lived on the farm all their lives, and just the thought of being able to go somewhere on the bus was a very new thing to them, and most of them hadn't bothered. In fact, there's a friend of mine now who's about my age, and until about 25 years ago, he'd never been further than Llanelli, which is probably about 50 miles from here. And himself and a few of the local farmers actually went down to London to be on a TV programme called Kilroy, which was like a chat show. And they were just talking about how bad things had got for farming, which is what they knew. But, you know, they knew, because farming depends on the elements and the weather and everything, they knew that it was getting bad for everyone else as well. Excuse the wobbly camera, this is a very old road. This actually is an old road, with a bit of tarmac on it. So now we're back on the magical lane. Last time I made a video here, it was when I was doing some logging, just before Christmas. I come up here quite a lot because there's loads of fallen wood, especially at the moment with the stormy season. And that's something positive about the storms, you know. I get a massive supply of wood every year from trees that have fallen down. I almost said it's not difficult to do. They're not difficult to get hold of, basically. The logs end up being everywhere. You can probably see quite a few branches and tree sections lying around the edges of the lane here. It is quite difficult sawing them up. It's incredibly difficult picking them all up and carrying them down to the house. But it's free, you know? And that, maybe a century or more ago, less than that actually, I've met people who remember it who may be in their 60s, 70s now. So, you know, maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago, that was what you did, you know, you worked, and it wasn't so much to get money, it was you worked to live, you worked to get what you needed to actually be able to keep going, to sustain life. Nowadays we work for money and we go and buy this stuff, you know, which has been made in some centralised factory somewhere at enormous environmental expense. And I buy some extra logs, you know, to supplement what I've got, and they come from a place around here And that keeps the footprint, the eco footprint, right down, you know, because there's hardly anything involved in transporting them. But that's only because I'm a modern day sort of weakling who's got used to creature comforts. If I had the strength, if I had the muscles, I wouldn't need to do that. I'd get it all from round here. And the only thing I'd be burning would be the food, which I eat anyway, so I'm burning that anyway. No bad thing, really. On the right of the screen, can't really see it anymore, but there used to be little stone dwellings all the way down here, and you can still see the back walls of some of them. There's even some old kind of very early metal tanks that have rusted away to nothing. You can still see the remains. So it's not quite in living memory that everything was different, but it's not that long ago. Goodness me, look at my big pile of trash there. So there we go, that's my Sunday trip to the shop. Bit of philosophy, because I was going to make a video, but I really had to get this done instead. So I've done it now. I'm going to say hello to the chickens, and then I'll be on my way to burn all this coal I've bought. Oh no, it's not fair you guys being shut in like that, is it? But I don't think you'd like it if you were out today. It's horrible weather. What's the matter? Not much I can do about it.